At the
Yes, I'm promoting her to be a panelist. Julie, if you accept that. Bingo.
There we go. So Julie, welcome to you and to everybody else that's joining us tonight. So Julie, take it away.
But unmute.
Unmute. Turn yours off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, keep talking for a second.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do the video now. There I am. Bobby, you have to turn that off.
Okay.
So, hi. My name is Julie Michaels. I thought I would introduce myself so you wouldn't think I was just this strange woman who's shown up at your door. I came here when I was 27 years old and lived in Southfield and was a reporter for the Berkshire Eagle for 4 years. I left. I went various other places and ended up at the Boston Globe for 15 years, where I was an editor and an op-ed page editor and a magazine editor. I came back off into the Berkshires, married a Berkshire boy, have been here for the past 25 years. I'm a freelance writer, editor. I still do work for the Globe. I live in West Stockbridge. However, I had an office in Great Barrington for 20 years in the Mahawi building. My previous experience is working with Berkshire Grown. I was on their board for 20 years. I was a chairman of that board for a while. I have been a very good friend of Freke Faust, who brought to you this idea of a sculpture of W.E.B. Du Bois in front of the library several years ago. It was a passion of hers. Someday I'll tell you the story of why, but it was. And Freke died last year, very sadly, of bone cancer. And that project sort of fell to the floor because no one was picking up on it. I was asked, would I become involved? And I seem to have become involved. What we have done is try and move her vision forward. She had this vision for a seated Du Bois in front of the library to celebrate this native son, to celebrate his intellectual greatness and place him in front of the library. We've made some changes in that. I understand that when Freke made this presentation, there was some sense of how we were going to seat him, et cetera, et cetera. Our idea was not only to create a sculpture, but to create community, that this is placemaking, the idea that the library is a gathering place. And when you pass the library on weekends, they're gathered in front of the library are people buying books. It's one place where all sorts of people, tourists, residents, children, older people gather. So the sense was, let's reinforce that and let's create a seating arrangement so that others can look at these books, buy these books, sit down with W.E.B. Du Bois, who's sitting also on this bench and welcoming them. That's the vision. We had asked Di Bon, who I've known for many years, we had initially asked him to just do a model. He became so involved in what he was doing and so committed to it that I think he's done remarkable work. And we feel that it would be nice to have a local person do this. And I think he has the skill. I think he has the talent. He has the will. And so we have made him part of our team. And I hope all of you have gotten a chance to go into the library where Di made a model. There's also now a small maquette of the seated Du Bois, and I think a very beautiful model of his head. We did put out a notice and ask people to comment. We have gotten some comments. Every one of them has been beyond positive, and I'm hoping that that's how you view it and that we can get your blessing. I know that you had agreed to Freke's proposal, and I'm hoping that we can move on since this is in some ways a continuation of Freke's proposal. So, hi.
Do you have the ability to screen share the pictures?
I don't have the pictures. I had hoped that all of you had seen them. Bobby,
me
can
see
you
if-
do that?
Ed, I have some pictures that I could email you if
I
that's
think you
okay.
I think you can screen share now.
Okay,
Give it a shot.
hang on. Let me see if I can find them first. Give me a minute.
Has everybody been able to see them? Have you visited?
Yeah,
them?
I've been in the library to see it. Yeah,
Who
There are
said
just
that,
quite a
Lauren?
few.
yeah.
There are some attendees, 9 in case anybody's counting, including press, who may or may not have seen it. So if we can post it, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
so thrilled to get my cell phone. I didn't even think about the photos.
Maybe you can.
While we're finding those, does anybody?
Yeah, I have. Who is the group that you're talking about?
Well, we have sort of banded together with the W.E.B. Du Bois town committee, or made a presentation to them, and we have decided that
Now, who do you mean? You mean Randy and Gwen?
Randy and Gwendolyn, that group, we've met with them a couple of times.
Mhm.
We talked to Paul Ivory. I've talked to Don Ho. Interesting conversation with him. And right now, Bobby Houston, who's sitting behind me, and I and Di Bond have made the smaller sort of sculpture committee underneath this. We also are hoping to work with the Friends of the Library, because Ed has talked about maybe getting donations through that portal. Is that right, Ed?
Yeah. This is, Amanda, that's not the current?
Well, there's another one.
Well,
That's the head.
head.
There's a,
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Lauren, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, so okay, because we didn't really drop the ball on that. There have been other people who also got together and have been had been working on this, and we did some research trying to find an African American sculptor to do this. Hadn't actually found that person. I personally adore Di Bond. He's a friend, and I've shown his work at my gallery. And but it was a little out of left field that there's been like sort of various people working on the same thing rather than all working together. But I thought that the thing that he did, the seated one, is really nice. And I'm wondering if, because that's just I don't know if it's just it's clay or it's clay.
It's clay.
Right? Yeah.
clay.
So, and this I'm assuming will be cast in bronze.
That is correct.
And I think that it needs to be more polished. And so I don't know if this was just like a quick mock-up.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think the face and everything, like, it's great. And I know, Di is totally capable of this. But I did feel as though, like, because he was such a polished person,
Right.
you know what I mean? That his, like, clothing and stuff should be, like, really, like, snazzy.
Snazzy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, it's because it's right now, it's like it's a little like lumpy, natty looking. So I'm just assuming that that's just a quick, like, putting this together kind of thing.
I think that's
So
the
I'm-
modeling medium that he's,
Yeah.
that's the level of finish that he's gotten to.
So I personally would like to see the next iteration of that in a more polished version
Mm-hmm.
before it really goes ahead. And so, and my other questions are, is there a budget that's been discussed? Does anybody know what this is going to cost? Is the bench going to, I mean, I didn't see a bench design with it, so it seems like that's another part that's important.
Yes.
To see, right now he's just on that like white block thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm assuming that's not the bench design.
No. I think our goal was, first of all, I'm very surprised to hear you say that other people were looking for a sculptor, because I would think that Randy and that group would know about it, or that Ed would know about it. So
well, yeah, I mean, I wrote to Eugenie a while back, and she didn't get back to me. And Randy is my next door neighbor at my business.
Yeah. Right. You're next to him, right?
Yeah. Except that he hasn't talked to me. So
Right. But I think Eugenie has been looped in recently.
Okay, because as I said, I wrote to her a while ago, and I said, listen, we have a few more people who are interested in moving this forward, but we don't want to be, more than one group trying to do this.
Yeah.
At cross purposes, like we should just all put our heads together. But I never heard anything, so I was just surprised that somebody else was doing it too, which is great.
Yeah, let's all get together.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about budget, because I called the folks in Adams who did the Susan B. Anthony sculpture. A little different story. I was saying to Ed that it came out of the selectmen. I think they were trying to turn it into a tourist mecca. Mm-hmm. And line it up with the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. And of course, COVID slammed them. But they got that model. They did an RFP because it was coming out of the selectmen, even though the money wasn't coming out of them. And I'm not particularly fond of what they got. They found someone who was sort of a maker of public monuments, and the budget for that was $150,000 for the sculpture and the sculptor, because he has his own foundry. They raised another $150,000 for events surrounding this. They were building a series of events around the presentation of the sculpture having to do with the anniversary. Most of those events did not take place. Some of that money was not spent. And it went into their cultural fund. What was interesting to me is out of this $150,000 or $300,000, they got $50,000 from the state of Massachusetts.
Oh,
They got, I would say, 30 to 50 more from local businesses, banks, insurance companies, maybe not that much. And maybe they seem to have no trouble raising this money. Although initially the woman who headed the committee said that the select board appointed 5 committee members without telling any of them that they were appointed, and 3 immediately quit because they didn't want to raise any money. But they got it, and they're happy with it. And it's rather interesting that the Mumbet people went straight to the same guy and had him design their monument. I haven't talked to the Mumbet people, although I know Smitty is behind them. We haven't talked to Smitty yet. He's on my call list.
I was going to say, so do you have a fundraising plan?
Yeah, a fundraising plan is we have to establish a fund somewhere. We were going to do it at Berkshire Taconic. Mm-hmm. Ed says that the Friends of the Library have a nonprofit under which we could collect funds, and we wouldn't have to pay 5 to 7% to, that's what you have to do. If you have to pay some money to Berkshire Taconic to raise your funds. So I'm hoping that we can come under that umbrella. What let's see, in terms of trying to figure out the steps, my first step was this committee, because if you guys don't want a sculpture in front of the library, end of story. Well,
we already said that we do, right?
No, I understand that, but you would have to say, good for you, keep going, thank you. As you say, I didn't know there are other people doing this. Right. There was some talk about having a competition. I've actually done some research on this, and when I was at the Globe, wrote about and covered some of these things. It can be very political, very long-winded. You get creation by committee. It's something I would not be good at. And I think there's talent here. I think we found it in Dye. I'm happy to have someone like you, Lauren, join us to, express your opinion about the journey of the art. I would love to have you join us on that level, because I think you have the skill and the talent and the background to help us along the way.
Okay.
I am having a conversation tomorrow with the director of Chesterwood. I know Freka had talked, I don't know who was the director of Chesterwood back then, but they have a
I'm
summer.
trying to remember her name.
Her name is Donna Hassler.
Donna, yeah. She's
And the reason I wrote to her was because Chesterwood has a summer residency for a sculptor. And I went online trying to find applications or when things were due. And so I just wrote to her and said, can we apply for can Dye Bond apply to use your studio space for the summer to work on this sculpture? And the idea that we should have a seated DuBois created at the home of the seated Lincoln is very moving to me. And she seems, and I don't know whether she's enthusiastic, but she emailed me right back, and we have this phone date. I think that's a resource that I want to embrace and bring in to the community. I also think that there are many levels of opportunity for fundraising. One of them would be to invite people to the workshop as he's doing this work. Have we found a caster? No. Dye had worked with someone in Massachusetts, and that facility closed during COVID. So we would still have to do lots of research on where you would cast this.
There is a foundry upstate New York, not that far from us, and I know the name of it, and I can't think of it offhand.
Well, maybe you can just email me. I'd love to have that information, because we need to put together a budget.
Yeah.
Now, there's the thing that's sort of interesting to me is that there seems to be money around. I may be wrong. There are also, these drug funds. Some of them went to the Amy Zion Church, and I think the argument was that Great Barrington wants to be known as more than the pot capital of Massachusetts. And certainly if the Black Church can get funding, I think we might be able to get funding for this. Yes.
I think there's potential for irritation if this artist, wonderful though he may be, is sort of automatically picked as the sculptor here without any a search, a call for submissions, and some attempt to encourage African American sculptors to submit their proposals. It's sounding a little like an inside job in a way that could be cause for some irritation. I mean, I say that respectfully. But...
Are you irritated?
Sorry?
Are you irritated?
Well, I could be, yes.
I guess one of the things I was trying to do was keep it local. And we had asked Dye to work on this as a maquette, and he became so involved with it, and we so liked his work. He is a person of color. He is not African American, but he's certainly of color. And I think, interestingly, like Freka, he's an immigrant who has embraced what America means and the civil rights movement.
Well, then I guess just thinking of being a few steps ahead of the PR you need to be in charge of about that, with that information.
Yeah. I understand what you said.
And present it that way.
Yeah. What concerns me in a project like this is getting bogged down. and having creation by committee, and quite frankly, this is about a sculpture in front of the library, and what we want to present is DuBois the intellectual, who has his hand on his most famous book and is inviting people to read with him. I totally get that one way of doing this is to have a competition and to ask African American artists to make their proposals. If I were an African American artist, I would be much more political than I'm talking about, and rightfully so. It's my understanding that we are trying to not be political with this sculpture. We are trying to be community, and the idea of keeping it in the community and not farming it out, to somebody who makes 50 monuments a week for whoever orders them, or having a very distinguished group of African American artists who are there and we can go to. But that's like, what happens if you get something that the community is feeling uneven about? This seems to me to stay local, but I understand exactly what you're saying. And if what we're hearing is a lot of feedback that we have to do something else, we might. But that's my reasoning behind doing something that's in the community and not pushed out to be somebody else's agenda.
I just want to say how beautifully I think Julie just put that. I think that's really the essence of this energy that you're seeing now.
I think that it would behoove the group doing this to at least make an effort to put it out there to the larger community, to even, and this might sound weird, but even if the chosen artist ends up being Dibon,
yeah,
because I agree with Margaret, you could, or we, the town, we, the people from the library, could be the focus of negative feedback.
How about this, Lauren?
Choose someone, and I totally understand the local thing again, and Di is a fabulous artist, and yes, and he is a person of color, but I kind of agree with this just picking someone.
Let me ask you this.
I think even if it only looks like you're looking for something else, I see, as Margaret said, a future PR
problem.
How
about this, Lauren? Since I've already said to you, I'd love your input, and you say you've talked about other things, can we meet separately apart from this group and talk about how to do that?
Yeah.
I think that would be, what I'm trying not to do is get stuck.
Right. And one other thing I just want to mention something else. In doing our homework on sculptures and on monuments, it turns out that this is sort of a civic industry, and that there are very high price points, that there are many, many artists who work in this field, and they make $150,000 artist fee or more, and they win competitions. And so if we're starting to go down the sort of civic industry route, it's going to get way past our pay grade in a hurry.
But I think both of you ladies are right, and I would love to have a further discussion about this. And so let's talk.
Okay.
Have you considered other locations? What other locations are you considering?
None.
It was my understanding that Freka had already won your approval for this, and I think it's a wonderful, because as I say, we're not trying to make a sculpture, standalone sculpture. We're trying to make a place that people gather And of it, as a part of that is this seated Du Bois. It's a way to honor him, but also honor the community. That's what I think takes this a little step further than what Freka was doing.
So,
Yeah,
'cause
I mean,
there's
we
like
did
the
we
middle
did give it our blessing, and I personally am still on that, but I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe that was before I was on the trustees.
Yeah, it was.
For example, there's the middle school that's named now named after him. So I'm just wondering if it seems that a variety of these choices may need to be, you have to look at different options, whether it's different sculptors, different locations, different, designs.
Why do other locations have to be considered? I mean, it's always been a project for W.E.B. Du Bois to be sitting in front of the library.
Yeah.
That's before my time. That I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I
I don't really feel like we need to go there. I think Du Bois sitting on a bench in front of the library somewhere is kind of already a predetermined thing, as far as I'm concerned. But maybe,
Okay.
if anybody else has any feelings about it besides you, Jane, I don't know.
Well, I'm just wondering how did it become a predetermined thing?
Well,
He's
just
an
because.
author.
I'm just asking.
Well, we were only giving it our blessing. It really doesn't have to do with the library. We can't really. We're not the ones who can say yes, you can do this here, right? Do I have that right? But we.
I wouldn't do it if I didn't have your blessing.
We voted on saying yes to Freka. Yes, we think this is a great idea. We think it would be wonderful in front of the library, and so I'm just saying that that part is already kind of done. I mean, I guess we could go back on that, but I don't feel a need to.
Oh, okay.
Unless there are other people besides Jane, right? So Margaret, I don't think that you were on the board yet then, and Chris, I don't think you were either.
I guess I would like to see I'd like to explore the history, understand the history of it. If you're asking for trustee support, I think each trustee needs to know the history before they.
But trustee support was already provided, so you simply have to go look at the archival record of what was.
I can provide some.
I don't think we should be going back on our word.
I can just provide a little anecdotal background, knowing what I know about Freka. Her daughter was at the middle school when there was a big brouhaha about whether or not it would be named for Du Bois. Freka herself is the daughter of quite a famous minister in Holland who was fought for civil rights there. She also spent her high school year in Saratoga Springs, living with an African-American family. And this became, again, the civil rights movement was very important to her, and she was very upset about this rejection of Du Bois, and actually wrote several articles for the local newspaper trying to explain to people what his background was, what his history was, what his experience was, and even why he ended up in Ghana. And then she took on this project. That is, I think that it was the town not wanting to acknowledge Du Bois that made her want to work on this. I feel that we are at a place now that we were not those many years ago. I think Du Bois has only risen in stature in this United States, certainly during the Black Lives Movement. He is much quoted. There's just a new book on the bestseller list that uses his name. I think that he has become more prominent in this world than he was even when Freka did this. He is certainly an intellectual, a great author, and it seems to me that the town should embrace him and maybe not be known as the drug capital of Massachusetts. So that's where that came from, and I think that's how Freka got to you, and that's why she became involved in this. Her husband Danny Klein went today to see the model and wept. He was so happy to see it picked up. So a little verklempt. There you go.
Julie, hi, this is Pat. I'm thinking, this has been a wonderful conversation. And several times you and Bobby mentioned the word community. And then Jane spoke as a newcomer, and I realized we probably have hundreds of people that also haven't experienced the story of what's going on here because they're new since the pandemic.
Yeah.
So one thing, what I would suggest is there's one other thing that's come up that I have received a little bit of feedback of people that do not feel strongly about this, that feel like we kind of just pushed this meeting through. It was quiet. And so that's always going to be hanging over us a little bit like a cloud. So what I would suggest is that we continue the conversation for the other publics. Everybody should be invited. The community should all come in. If there's public discourse, that's what libraries are all about. And continue this in January so people don't feel, if they feel like it's, Lauren felt maybe some things are pushing ahead too fast, which is great. And I agree with you. You can get into the quagmire of not getting anything done. But there's probably a middle ground there because this statute is going to outlive everybody in this Zoom tonight. And so I think the way we're dealing with this, we want to make sure that it's just everything is clean. There's no feelings that something was done behind the scenes, behind people's
I'm
backs.
totally in support of that.
So
What I need, when you're working into something like this and picking up the drop standard, especially in the politics of a town. I'm a resident of West Stockbridge, but right on the border with Housatonic. So picking up that standard, I have to figure out who to go to first, right? And you are my first stop. And what I hear here informs me about what the next steps are. But I think coming to you first was the right step. And Pat, I hear you. Let's now bring in the rest of the community in here.
And we're happy to provide that forum for that. So it could be the second Thursday of January, which is probably right before MLK Day anyway. It's so anyway, that's just something. So nobody feels rushed, and there's another side of this. Those people aren't here tonight, which is I think they felt that they weren't invited because it was so quiet. And I want people to come speak free. Everybody's got to speak their mind so that we can kind of move forward. So that would be one thing that would be helpful. And obviously we have other people in attendance tonight that should be encouraged to speak now since they're here.
Also, we should make a point of publicizing the model and the maquette. Yeah, exactly. Because it tells you the whole story in a heartbeat.
Yeah, so that will give us basically another month from today. And there'll be a lot of second homeowners back for the holidays. It's actually a great time to do it. And then January is kind of just quiet and nothing's going on. It'd be a great time to.
Are you suggesting we talk to the Eagle? Are you suggesting we put it on a web? How do you want us to publicize the fact that this is going forward?
I think all the above, everything. We should get the word out there beyond
obviously.
Beyond the person.
Again?
I mean, if you think that, Harvard has a DuBois research department that's probably heavily endowed.
No, the University of Massachusetts at Amherst is the.
So the thing is that same thing. Everybody should. This is Massachusetts is their home too. We're part of the community in a smaller sense, but we might as well just open it up.
Sure.
And first of all, for funding, it's going to make it easier for that visibility too.
There are several attendees with their hands up. Do you want to?
Sure. Let's hear from them.
Okay. Jeff Lowenstein.
Thanks, Ed. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts about this conversation, and many things I could say here. But I think that I would start by just raising a question that feels to me like very absent in this conversation, which is just acknowledging some of the context of the DuBois Legacy Committee having been involved in these conversations. You know, I was a long time Houstonic resident. I've been involved in some of the organizing efforts over the last 5 years to get the town to acknowledge Du Bois, renaming the middle school. And I want to say we've had those conversations in the community, like dozens of times. You know, it's my understanding that the Du Bois Legacy Committee represents the town, represents these issues, and I certainly hear and empathize with the need to make sure everyone's voices are heard. But I also want to echo what Julie said. I don't want to see this get bogged down. I mean, I can say, just bring the personal note to it for a minute. I'm 28. I grew up in Sheffield. I spent a lot of mornings, because I'm a big bookworm, in the Great Barrington Library. I didn't learn that Du Bois had been born in Great Barrington until college. I didn't learn about the impact of his writings until after college. And I just want to present the perspective as a young person that, like, we are leaving our youth ignorant. Du Bois has been buried in the town history. I think there's been a lot of change in the last couple of years to address that and bring Du Bois forward and make him more prominent. And I just want to say, you know, having now read some of Du Bois's works, learning about him as an author and an educator, I think it would be very, very powerful for the library to have a statue of Du Bois out front. And I don't want to see the can get kicked down the road, you know, again and again and again. So, you know, if there's not been any of that conversation, you know, I can certainly hear the desire to have that included and have it open. But I really would like to hear more about how the Du Bois Legacy Committee has already been engaged in these efforts, because I'm hearing an assumption that, like, there hasn't been this conversation in the community, and I'm not confident that really is the case when we look at the Du Bois Legacy Committee. So I'm wondering if we could hear, you know, maybe from Julie or from other folks.
The first person I met with was Randy Weinstein, shortly after Freka's death. He knows this. We've met with the committee. I want to be careful. You know, that is a town committee, so. You know, again, this is like, oh my God. We want to do this. We want to work with the Friends of the Library. We want to work with the Du Bois Committee. They certainly know we exist. They're very pleased about this. So we have their blessing. And I know that there was lots of discussion about this, as I say, with the naming of the school. And I think even when Freka brought this up last time, I take your point, and bravo. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Erica Milkey.
Hi guys, this is Erica. I live in Great Barrington. I was actually born in Great Barrington, and I have a similar experience as Jeff. No idea Du Bois was from here until a college friend at Notre Dame was telling me about this amazing person she was learning about. Lo and behold, born in my town, and I had no idea. I am extremely in favor of there being a statue. It sounds like it will be beautiful. The idea of it being in front of the library sounds really appropriate given his emphasis on education. I'm a little concerned, and perhaps it was just how you worded things, Julie and Bobby, but it sounded like it had nothing to do with the Du Bois Legacy Committee, and them knowing that you exist is different than working with an existing organization.
We're working with them.
Okay, because at no point did you mention them in your presentation. It sounded like it was.
I thought it was a given. I'm sorry. They have known from the beginning, and as I say, I'm sorry Randy's not on this. I know he's preparing for surgery, but they know about us and have been.
Because it is also different, one individual from the committee and the committee as a whole being aware.
We met with the whole committee. We met with the whole committee.
That was really important information to lead with.
I'm sorry.
It sounds really important. I believe that was one of the things Margaret was bringing up. Like, it kind of seems like it's something happening on the side.
No.
By a small group that just wants to get it done.
I went. I know that this was Freka's connection. I went to Randy. Randy and I had long conversations. We have met with the entire committee. They seem very enthusiastic.
Okay.
And I have been emailing them with progress reports. So yes, I don't know whether technically we're supposed to be under a town committee.
I just think it's really important. I've been trying to work on acknowledging my privilege and dealing with the ways white supremacy shows up in meetings. And this, when you were saying you didn't want to get bogged down in committees, that really raised some flags for me, because I know that my need to push things forward and get things done quickly and see results has led me in the past to not hear from all people involved and to just push my agenda at all costs. And it sounded that it rang a little true for me the way you were referring to it. So if you are working with the Du Bois Legacy Committee, that's great. I think it's really important that people of color are involved in the decision-making process, because, as we all agree, honoring Dr. Du Bois is long overdue. For decades, a century, the town has been brushing the importance of African-American history under the rug. It would be a shame to do that now just to make it happen quickly.
No. I agree with you 100%, and I apologize if I was not forthcoming enough about that.
Okay, thank you.
Lily, go ahead.
Thanks, Ed. Can y'all hear me? Great. My name is Lily. I live in Great Barrington. I live a walkable distance from the library, and I'm there quite often. I shared this actually at the forum and conversation around renaming the middle school, but Du Bois is one of the reasons that my husband and I ended up in Great Barrington. The signs that were up when we were driving around trying to figure out where we wanted to settle. So I'm really excited to see this move forward, and I guess I want to just echo the sentiment that I think this has like real implications and like really matters in terms of the kind of community in town that we're creating. So I'm excited for this conversation, and thank you all for having it tonight. I want to say that I think to jump back a couple conversations around finding an artist, I appreciate, Lauren, some of the issues that you raised or just questions around what that process will be. I don't necessarily have an answer to that, and I don't need to be the deciding factor on it, but I do think that it needs to be transparent, and that process should really reflect Du Bois's values around unpacking and dismantling white supremacy. And so I think that is really a place where this committee can dig in and think about the resources that exist in this community to do that work, and do that work holistically and with care. So I guess I want to say, I think it's not that it's a PR issue. I think it's a values issue, and I just want to name that. And specifically, I think, there likely are local artists, local Black artists who exist or who would be interested. And I also think I don't want to make assumptions about what the message of a Black artist, local or national, would want to say in this moment. And so there were just a couple places where I feel like taking a second, kind of thinking through some assumptions in there would be really helpful. And yeah, I guess I just want to emphasize that I think the process for moving forward can and should be rooted in the values that Du Bois, his life and legacy, brought to this country. So for me, one of my biggest learnings in the last couple of years in doing anti-racism work has been thinking about process as an outcome within itself. And so I would just invite this committee to kind of approach this project from that perspective. Thanks.
Lily, I would like to, I hear your interest, and it occurs to me that the creation and the installation of the sculpture is really the beginning of a learning experience for the town. And I would think that one of our responsibilities is to create more education about who Du Bois was, and to maybe have some panels and bring in another aspect when this sculpture comes in. The sculpture is only part of a larger message, as you're saying. This is the town we want to live in. So I love to talk with you about participating in that.
Thank you, Lily. Sheridan, I think yes.
Hi, Sheridan Amio. I'm here on behalf of the newsletter and Eileen Mooney. So yeah, to Patrick and Julie's point, first step on getting this publicized is this will be in print in the newsletter shortly. I don't want to bog down the entire committee in meeting by asking for details now, but Julie, Lauren, I would love to talk to both of you later and get some more details on this specifically so I can write them up and inform the community about them. But I think this is a great project and I'm glad we're having this discussion.
Sheridan, can we talk tomorrow morning? I have an appointment after this, but I'd love to chat.
I would love to. Do you have an email address I can reach out to?
Yeah. Lilypad Inc., LILYPADINC @AOL.com.
LILYPADINC @AOL.com?
Yeah, and that just shows you how old I am.
Thank you very much. And Lauren, I would love to talk of some points as well if you have any time to either call or email me. Is there any way I can talk to you?
Yeah. Which would you prefer?
Whatever's best for you, but let me just shoot you an email with my phone number and contact information so you can decide.
Okay, so you have that already.
I don't have your email. Sorry about
okay.
Sorry, I just don't want to bog the whole committee down with my endless questions.
Right. Okay. So do you want my email address?
If you don't mind, that would be wonderful.
It's fine. It's a long one. Lauren at LaurenClarkFineArt.com.
Thank you very much.
You're
All right,
welcome.
I look forward to talking with you both, and I'm glad that this is a project that the town is working on. It seems wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. There are three more people who want to speak. Holly Hamer. Unmute yourself, Holly.
Hi, it's Holly Hamer from Great Barrington. I thought that was an excellent presentation, Julian, Bobby, and Di. And I think I've seen the maquette. I think it's really interesting. And what I don't quite get about this discussion is this was already decided, and there was a great deal of opportunity. There was public input. There were articles in the paper. The whole notion of whether he should be honored was being discussed at that time. And there was a clear majority of people in the town and a total majority, the entire library trustees board at the time voted this in. So I think that even though it's not intentional, it feels like, there's some of the discussion today would create obstacles to you completing this project. And I would hate to see that because after all, like all of us, you guys are volunteers. What's different is this is not a town committee. This is not a town department. This is an individual committee joining up with a nonprofit, the Friends. And I think the library needs to really set some boundaries as to what input you want to have as representatives of the library. The whole discussion about his value and needing to be honored, that's already been done. And I think everybody sort of agrees with that. What you haven't talked about is the way the maquette looks, this will change the front lawn of the library. There's an extra bench built in, which I think is brilliant because it really will attract people to come and sit and talk. And I think that's what I would love to see the trustees talk about, rather than reinventing the entire process, which has already been gone through. And I appreciate that some people may not have been on the board at that time, but it is your responsibility to be versed in what has happened and not reinvent the wheel here, because there's just only so many hurdles people can take when they're trying to accomplish something. And I so appreciate your presentation. I thought it was incredibly articulate. I knew Franco, and I remember distinctly the meetings and the many discussions that we had over this. And I think it's an appropriate project. I think it's a wonderful project, but I really wish the trustees will give their undivided support instead of what it sounds like tonight. Not all of you, but it sounds like some people on the trustees may need to do some of the work on their own rather than handing that back to the people that are doing the work on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait. Sarah.
Hi, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Wow. First, Holly, thank you. I think really pretty much everything you said really resonates, and maybe a lot, it goes toward a lot of what I wanted to share tonight. And my name is Sarah Mugridge. I sit on the DuBois Legacy Committee, and prior to that, I volunteered, as a community volunteer with the first DuBois Legacy Festival, and got to know Freka. And, as this project was, I want to say starting, but really it's been a continuation, right, of really decades and generations of work. And so, Holly, I think your point about how many conversations and how many iterations of community dialogue there's really been around this, around honoring Du Bois's legacy, how to honor Du Bois's legacy, and yes, even very specifically how to, make this very visible embrace of Du Bois's legacy at the center of town. That has been happening. That is a very active conversation and has been for a very long time. And I really echo the gratitude for those stewarding this further, and look forward to, as a member of the committee, partnering, right? A lot of what the town committee does is partner with organizations and institutions to coordinate efforts, right? And this is a collective effort here. And I think, this is time to rally, not time to sit and wait. This really feels like we have the support. We've seen the support. We welcome, the way that the how, right, is always bringing in community dialogue and opening up to more learning. I think that is the spirit of Du Bois. So I would like to see. I do have some concerns about some of the hesitation that I think I may be hearing on this call, perhaps, and really would just like to be with you all and rallying behind this at this point. So thank you for having this meeting, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Stephanie Wright, another member of the Du Bois Committee. Go ahead, unmute yourself, Stephanie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Wright. I'm from Sheffield. And yes, I sat next to Freka at many of those meetings I've been in with the Du Bois Committee. I think this is my 4th year. And she would light up every time she talked about that statue. She wanted that statue. And what's hurting my heart right now is that it didn't get done. She's passed away, and she wanted to see that so bad. And we went through many, many meetings. And I'm going to echo Sarah and Lily and Jeff. We've been down the road so many times. And I'm going to say the people who don't know about the history, you can go back and look at the many articles in the paper, and maybe I'm hoping that some of that stuff is on video, like the town hall meetings at Monument Mountain when all those yellow tickets went up. When we were talking about Du Bois, a lot of the town members want to see Du Bois honored in the town. And it's been a long time coming. And I'm going to go back to some ladies that you don't even know. The Jones lady she was the librarian at Simon's Rock. And I'm going to go back to all these African-American ladies, Elaine Gunn. They fought for and they wanted Du Bois to be known, these ladies. And you know what? I'm going to honor those ladies because I'm alive. Esther Dozier. I'm going to honor those ladies now. I'm getting older, but I want to honor those ladies and let their vision for Great Barrington shine through. Thank you all. I just don't want to go back down the road again. Thank you.
Can I say something in between? Right? I'm not muted.
I'm muted.
I actually.
I just want to repeat, that's everybody who had their hand up. So we're back to the board.
Okay. Okay. Well, just in response to Stephanie and the last couple of people, I wasn't detecting any hesitancy on the part of the board about this. I think we were just bringing up questions around how it should get done. Am I wrong about that? Because I don't feel that there's any hesitancy on our part to make sure that this happens and that it happens at the library. I mean, anyway, I know that I am 100% in favor of this happening. So anyway, I don't know. Was there any hesitancy on anybody's part? I think it was more just about getting clear about how it's going to come to fruition, right? That there are questions about it. Anyone?
Well, as they say in the civil rights movement, we make the road by walking it.
So Pat, back to you. Your meeting.
Thank you. So I think, well, look at that, 7:01. That's amazing. I would say, honestly, let's go back. I still think we should give everybody a chance to speak, regardless of how they feel. So I think if we continue this into January, to that January meeting, for just more public discussion, just to let everybody have their say. I think it's really important, because otherwise there's the ghost of that hangs around. So I think we can just do it then. It's a great exercise in getting publicity for the exhibition that's already at Mason. And it's a great way to bring public awareness throughout the region, if not even the universe for that matter, on internet, as far as what will go out on media. It's just it's an opportunity. I look at it as. It's not a delaying tactic. And so, Julie, I just welcome you to come back, Bobby, and everybody else, if that feels good to you.
Fine with me.
Great, thank you.
Margaret has something to say.
Just a quick question, and apologies for my ignorance on this. As with the change of name of the middle school, does this require coming up at a town meeting?
Oh, no.
Because that certainly gave voice to those who were against that.
Yes, let me quickly.
I'm curious to know.
Assuming you guys, and I guess that, like as people have pointed out, you already have, probably the next step is the Historic District Commission, just because it's going in front of the library. They also gave a tentative nod, but they want to see an actual plan. And then, in effect, since it's private money, it'll be a gift to the town, and the select board votes to accept it. So that's the process. This does not need to go to town meeting.
Okay. Thanks be to God. But I'm happy to come. Pat, I understand what you're saying. I'd love to chat with Lauren. I love the fact of us presenting this to you, because I feel like we have been working a little bit on the side, and I want to get this out there. So let's do this together. I'm happy to come back, and maybe the naysayers weren't here tonight, and they're probably out there, but I think that the community in general, and I think a huge majority of the community, will be very supportive of this. And my hope is that we can present something beautiful and celebratory. And as I say, educate our children as this piece goes in. So I'm delighted to be working with you, and I thank you for your time.
Great.
Can I ask one more question? And the question is for you, Pat. When you're talking about opening this up. So the idea is we're having a library trustee meeting. It's always open to the public, right? I mean, the public can always be part of our meetings. Is your idea of opening this up to the general public about whether they think it's a good idea or not to do this, or is it around the sculptor and design questions, which is, I thought, really kind of all we were talking about tonight, because we were already in agreement that this should happen. Because it could get really gnarly with the entire public who wants to say something about it, and they might not be talking about the artist or the design work. They might just be talking about how much they hate the whole idea again. So I'm just curious as to where your thought is going with this.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, it's really how we make the sausages, and freedom isn't, it's messy. I don't believe in limiting what people want to say. Honestly, I think they should all have their say. That's where there ends up being problems, where people feel like they're being hindered into speaking about an issue. And I think it's a great opportunity to educate, again, the entire community, besides our children. It's probably some of our adults, too.
Mostly.
If we make the subject, bring it to the public. Let them write letters to the editor. Let them get it out. It's our chance to do that, so that we come out. That's why libraries are there, for public discourse.
But we're not gonna change our minds about it based on.
But no, we already,
maybe some people coming out and saying, "Oh my God, no, don't,"
Yeah, whatever they want. I just think that we should just have it. Just get it out into the open. Let everybody that's venting, let them vent.
Okay.
This is a chance. America.
And similarly, if Dibon is still chosen as the artist, we will have put it out there as something that's open to more. Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that because,
let me say to you, let me say to you that I'm happy to come back in January. But when I come back in January, I would expect your support. If I don't get it, I'm not going anywhere because there's no point.
I don't think that's in question, Julie, at all.
Yeah, I think you have our support.
That's not a question, but it's just a matter of just making sure the public, we
understand. I agree with you, Pat. Yeah. So I'm not disagreeing, and I think the better part of valor is to have people shout early rather than later. So yes, and I do want to talk to Laura, and so this has been very good for me and for us to hear from you. And let's continue this, and then let's move on, because I'm very good at this kind of thing, but I'm not very good at 2 or 3 years down the road. You know what I mean? This can be dropped so easily if it gets bogged down. And I think there's enough commitment here and enough energy and enough money, quite frankly. I think there's money around to do this. So I don't want Freka's dream to die a second time. That's all.
I don't have to worry about that.
It seems inconsistent that as Holly Hamer said, this has all been discussed before. People can do their homework and see that. And we agreed with that. At least I think we did. And yet we're saying, let these people potentially come back and argue over this again. So why are we doing that? I'm confused, Pat.
No, I think it's very simple. This basically, we spent a lot of time on this, and then it went dark for a couple of years. So at this point, everybody's perspectives may have changed for the positive, for all we know. But I think we just have to let the public. It's the public's building. We get voted in by the public. I think people should just have their say. I don't think we should suppress the freedom of speech. I don't think Du Bois would appreciate that either. So I think the thing is, it's just part of the process. I don't think we need to be afraid of it. It's just, I think If we don't do it, there's going to be something hanging over this. All these questions that were brought up tonight are great questions and thoughts. It's just part of the process moving this forward. This has to happen at some point. It's just happening now. I mean, that's my opinion, but I think the thing is, it's the safe way to go.
I just wanted to point out that we're doing this ad hoc and at our own expense thus far. So the idea that the public was not here tonight, they were here tonight. There was public speak tonight. And I understand why things get dropped, and I understand why cans get kicked down the road. It's because the fear that we make a decision. So I'm with Margaret. This is decided. I'm with Holly. This is decided. The trustees have already come down for this. We're just bringing it back to life.
I don't think we disagree with that, Bobby. But and the thing is also, you guys have the freedom not to want to come back. So
no, we want this done. That's why we're sitting here.
I mean, no, but that's what I'm saying. You can say, no, we don't want to be part of that, and it won't happen then. You know, we won't have another discussion, and we already made a decision a couple of years ago.
That would be a terrible, sad fail.
No, we'll come back. I'm happy to come back, and there's plenty of work for us to do in the intervening month, and there's Christmas and blah 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 blah. So I'm, more merrier. I think this committee can handle. You know what you want to do. You know where you want to go. I'm sure you can handle the comments of the public, whatever they are, the next time.
Not worried about that at all. I think, again, there's a positive side of this. Don't forget.
Yes.
It's going to be incredible exposure now.
Yeah.
More people will see it, will walk into the library to look. They'll be curious. That's what you want. That's what we want.
Yeah.
This is a great opportunity to get it out there.
And I have to say, I didn't set up any of those comments. The people who went on, I didn't even know they were coming on. I was thrilled, so what do I know? Okay, can we go? Are we good?
We can go. Yeah. Happy holidays. Thanks for coming.
Merry Christmas to you all. Thank you so much.
Can I say something quickly?
We'll talk soon.
Okay, Lauren, I'll talk. Okay. Bye-bye, all.
I probably should have said this at the beginning of the meeting, Pat, just to let people know, this is the first time we've done the webinar format here, and Pat didn't have time to get trained, which is why I'm driving this. But
yeah, and I appreciate that.
Ciao, everybody.
Yeah.
And then generally, because it is for if the press is interested, there were about, other than the panelists, about 10 attendees at the most. It's down to 8.
Is there, can we just take a second? Because we went out of order there as far as the treasurer's report. And if there's billing rounds, just take a second. But we need to kind of complete this for the year's end.
Right. Well, there's, am I muted? Okay. Did you want to do a treasurer's report?
If you can, just for a second.
Yeah, well, so